3 weeks ago, late one stormy night, my Ring doorbell captured footage of an 8-year-old girl standing at my apartment door during a thunderstorm. She was completely soaked, wearing a yellow raincoat that looked far too big for her small frame. But here's what made my blood run cold. She knew exactly where I kept my spare key hidden, a location I had never shared with another living soul. What you're about to hear is my complete account of what happened that night and the weeks that followed. I live on the 14th floor of the Meridian Apartments in downtown Portland. It's a secure building with keycard access, surveillance cameras, and a 24-hour front desk. The kind of place where strangers don't just wander the halls, especially not children in the middle of the night. That Tuesday evening started like any other. I had just finished a late dinner and was settling down to watch Netflix when the storm hit. The rain was hammering against my windows with unusual force, and the thunder was so loud it kept making my neighbor's dog bark from the apartment next door. Late that night, my phone buzzed with a notification from my Ring doorbell. Someone was outside my door. I pulled up the live feed expecting to see maybe my neighbor Mrs. Chun, who sometimes locked herself out. Instead, I saw this little girl standing perfectly still in the hallway. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shivering despite being drenched. She was just standing there, looking directly into the camera as if she knew I was watching her at that exact moment. I opened my door cautiously, keeping the chain lock engaged. "Sweetie, are you okay? Are you lost?" She looked up at me with these impossibly dark eyes and said, "I live here too. Right down the hall. You know, right next to where you keep your emergency flashlight under the kitchen sink and your backup phone charger in the junk drawer with the broken handle." I lived alone in my apartment, and she was right about both items, things I had never mentioned to anyone, not even my closest friends. I immediately called down to Marcus, our night security guard. He's worked this building for 6 years and knows every resident. His response chilled me to the bone. "Sir, there are no children registered in this building. Haven't been any kids here for at least 2 years." That's when she said something that made me realize this wasn't a case of a lost child. "You texted your sister Sarah yesterday afternoon," the girl said, still standing in my doorway. "You told her you were worried about the presentation at work, but you didn't mention that you've been having those dreams again. The ones where you're walking through your childhood home, but all the doors lead to empty rooms." I had never told anyone about those recurring dreams. Not my therapist, not my family, not even my journal entries on my laptop. These were thoughts that existed only in my mind. But she wasn't finished. "You posted a photo of your lunch on Instagram last Thursday, that sandwich from the deli on Morrison Street. But you didn't post about how you sat in your car for 20 minutes afterward, crying because it reminded you of the sandwiches your mom used to make before she got sick." This was information that didn't exist anywhere. I had never written about it, never spoken about it, never even consciously acknowledged that connection myself until she said it. The girl took a step closer, and I noticed she wasn't leaving wet footprints on my hallway carpet despite being soaked from the rain. "You changed your Netflix password 3 days ago to Moonlight 2019 because that's the year you adopted Whiskers, and you were watching him sleep on your couch when you updated it. But you're going to change it again next week to Portland_rain_47 because you'll be thinking about tonight." I hadn't changed my password yet to Portland_rain_47. That was something that supposedly hadn't even happened yet. Have you ever had the feeling that someone has been inside your mind, accessing thoughts and memories you didn't even know you had stored there? That's exactly what this felt like, except infinitely worse because she was just a child, and children aren't supposed to know these things. I stepped back into my apartment and started to close the door, but she placed her small hand against it. "You need to check your security app," she said quietly. "Look at the footage from tonight. but also from last Tuesday, and the Tuesday before that, and every Tuesday for the past 2 months. Look very carefully at camera 7 in the parking garage. After she said that, she simply walked away, disappearing around the corner toward the emergency exit stairwell. But when I checked my security app weeks later, I discovered something that should have been impossible. I spent the entire next day reviewing footage from our building's security system. As a resident, I have access to the past 30 days of recordings from common areas. What I found made me question my own sanity. Camera 7 in the parking garage had been capturing images of the same girl every Tuesday night for the past 8 weeks. But here's what made no sense: she appeared in multiple locations simultaneously. Around the same time each night, she'd be standing by the mailboxes in the lobby. At that exact same moment, she'd also be visible in the parking garage, the laundry room on the 3rd floor, and the rooftop garden. The timestamps were identical down to the second. This wasn't a case of someone editing the footage or jumping between locations quickly. She was physically present in 4 different places at the same time. I started documenting everything: screenshots, timestamps, detailed notes about her behavior patterns. She always appeared during storms. She always wore the same yellow raincoat, and she always seemed to be looking for something specific in each location. My research led me to online forums where I discovered reports from other apartment buildings across the city. The same description: an 8-year-old girl in a yellow raincoat, appearing during thunderstorms, demonstrating impossible knowledge about residents' private lives. A resident from the Cascade Tower reported that the girl knew about his unpaid medical bills that he'd never told anyone about. Someone from the Pearl District lofts said she correctly predicted that his girlfriend would break up with him 3 days before it actually happened. But the most disturbing report came from the Bridgetown apartment. A woman named Jennifer posted that the girl had appeared to her 6 months ago and warned her about a gas leak that maintenance would discover the following week. The leak was found exactly when the girl predicted, in the exact location she described. These weren't lucky guesses. This was specific, detailed information that shouldn't have been accessible to an 8-year-old child, or anyone for that matter. I realized that this girl had been systematically visiting residents across Portland, gathering information, making predictions, and demonstrating knowledge that defied explanation. But why? What was she looking for? And more importantly, why had she finally decided to speak directly to me? The following Tuesday, I waited for her. I set up my phone to record, positioned myself by the door, and prepared to get answers. Around the same time as before, she appeared again. Same yellow raincoat, same calm demeanor, same impossibly dark eyes. This time, I didn't hesitate. I opened the door fully and stepped into the hallway. "Who are you?" I demanded. "What do you want from me?" She tilted her head slightly, as if considering whether to answer. Then she spoke, and her voice carried a weight that didn't match her apparent age. "I'm collecting stories," she said. "Every person has moments they think are private, thoughts they believe are hidden, futures they can't see coming. But everything is connected, and every story matters." That doesn't answer my question. How do you know these things about me? About everyone. "You're going to quit your job next month," she continued, ignoring my question. "On a Thursday morning, you'll get an email that makes you realize you've been wasting your potential. You'll walk into your boss's office at 2:15 p.m. and resign without having another job lined up." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "That's ridiculous. I would never do that. I'm careful with money, I plan everything, and I would never quit without security." "You'll do it because you'll finally understand that security is an illusion. The real risk is staying in a life that makes you feel empty." Her words hit something deep inside me that I didn't want to acknowledge. 3 weeks after you quit, you'll start freelance writing. Your first client will contact you through an email that arrives at 9:33 a.m. on a rainy Wednesday. The subject line will be "Saw your work online." You'll make more money in your first month than you did in your last 3 months at your current job. Imagine realizing that someone has been studying not just your entire life, but your potential futures, your unspoken dreams, and the paths you're too afraid to take. But why? I asked. Why are you telling me this? That's when she revealed something that changed everything I thought I understood about this encounter. Because, she said, you're going to write about this experience. About me, about what happened tonight and all the Tuesday nights before this one. Your story about our encounter will be read by exactly 47,293 people in the first week. One of those readers will be someone who needs to hear about taking risks and following unexpected paths. She paused, and for the first time, she looked like what she was supposed to be, just a child. I collect stories so they can find the people who need them most. Your story will reach someone who's standing on their own threshold, afraid to open the door to change. They'll read about how you quit your job and found success, and they'll find the courage to make their own leap. As she spoke, I realized she was describing exactly what I was planning to do, write about this experience and share it online. The dreams about your childhood home will stop after you quit your job, she added. The empty rooms will fill up with new possibilities once you stop being afraid of the unknown. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, wet piece of paper. She handed it to me and said, "Keep this. You'll understand why later." The paper contained a handwritten list of dates and events, the day I would quit, when I would receive my first freelance email, and other specific details about my future. She walked toward the stairwell, but before disappearing around the corner, she turned back one final time. "Some doors only open once," she said. "Make sure you're ready to walk through yours." That was 3 weeks ago. I quit my job exactly when she predicted. My first freelance client emailed on a rainy Wednesday morning with the subject line, "Saw your work online." And I've made more money in my first month than I did in my last 3 months at my corporate job. The wet piece of paper she gave me is still on my desk, somehow never drying completely despite the weeks that have passed. I'm sharing this story because 47,292 people have read it so far, and according to her prediction, one more person needs to hear it. Maybe that person is you. If you've ever felt like you're living in empty rooms, afraid to open doors to new possibilities, maybe this story found you for a reason. Check your building's security footage during the next thunderstorm. Look for small figures in yellow raincoat. And if you see something impossible, don't dismiss it immediately. Sometimes the most unexpected encounters carry exactly the message we need to hear. Have you ever experienced something that defied explanation but led you toward positive change? Share your story in the comments below. Who knows, maybe your experience is exactly what someone else needs to read today. And remember, some doors only open once. Make sure you're ready to walk through yours.